Hey everyone, it is I, the Flame King, and with Sonic Frontiers on the rise, I want to give Sonic Forces one more chance because it had a lot of great potential. But of course, that one more chance is not going to come through actually giving it a chance. Nah. We're going to create our own new Sonic Forces, and by we, I mean me, you're just going to watch me. But I feel like I've come up with some cool, creative, unique ideas and concepts. So without further ado, let's see Sonic Forces change from this into this. Alright, so first and foremost, this is what the original Forces was like. Here are all the levels I composed together. I really just did this so I can get a comparison between this and the thing I actually came up with. Plus, I used this as a base because I didn't want to go too far out of the way. Because honestly, I don't think Sonic Forces needs such an overhaul. Now, given it does need a bit of an overhaul, but I thought that it didn't need anything too crazy. So here are the stages from the original Forces, and here's what I did with it. Okay, so it kind of starts out the same, except you'll notice very quickly I have a new stage there after Lost Valley. And I'll get to that in a sec. But I want to talk about Lost Valley and how it really was kind of lackluster. I would kind of like build up the level design, but like story wise, everything's the same. I would definitely have the Death Egg robot Sentinel whatever's in the background too to make it look like Eggman is causing the sand, like Sonic implies. But then after Sonic loses, you get the screens of text that say, "Oh, Eggman took over the world." Except this time, I think IDW should have some pictures that go with it rather than just the black screen. Then, of course, the typical you create your avatar, but they get word that danger is going down in Seaside Hill. That's what that stage is. And Silver, in order to prove he's an optimist, invites the rookie, you, to come with him to Seaside Hill to prove yourself. And so that would be the new first level for the Avatar, Ocean Base from Seaside Hill. And I also gave each area its own unique emblem. I'm not the best at drawing. Some of you might be looking how crap they are right now, but I thought they were pretty cool. I wish I could pay someone to make them look better though, but I can't. I'm in college. I have no money. But after that, then we have Ghost Town and then versus Chaos. Obviously, that little bit would be redone a little bit. Tails won't look like as much of a coward, and they'll be like, "Oh, Chaos doesn't go down in one hit," and so Chaos will be a bit of a threat throughout Ghost Town, and then you just straight up get a boss fight against him afterwards. And then after that, I thought it would be cool because I feel like a big part of why Lost Valley, not Lost Valley, the classic levels, at least part of why they're lackluster is because, like, I don't know. At first, it's really just Tails talking, but it's like, Tails, you don't need to be saying the things you're saying. And so, since he's with Classic Sonic, I thought it would be cool if Classic Tails could also somehow magically appear as well. I mean, they did it with Classic Sonic. Why can't they do it with Classic Tails? Then, since Tails was working on Omega, I thought it would be cool if Rouge was looking for Omega, because that would make sense. And she's able to get him back online, and Tails goes into a bit of a redemption arc, and then she and Omega kind of go along with Rouge. Uh, she and Omega go along with Tails, and obviously this would mean that Rouge is not with the Resistance. She's kind of off on her own, doing her own thing, forcing a reworking of that. But then you have Spaceport, and then I wanted to rework because like it didn't make sense why Sonic was at Egg Gate, the place where the ships would land, while the rookie was in. I mean, I guess it could make sense, but the way I reworked it, Sonic goes through Prison Hall before fighting Zavok. Now it's the same stage, but just renamed to being Prison Hall, and Zavok is basically on the hunt trying to stop Sonic, and they're having banter back and forth because I really don't think there should be a level where it's just one character talking, at least with the way they set this game up. And then completely new Zavok boss fight, One that kind of fuses what his original boss fight was in Lost World, where he's riding the little mech dragon train thing, and they fuse that with kind of the boss design that the Boost games had, and so I feel like that would be cooler. And then after that, Sonic's like, "Oh, I need to find a way out of here before they send someone else to get me." And then he looks at the wreck that Zavok left when he disintegrated, implying that Sonic uses that to get back to Earth, which creates a new thing. So then the Avatar level Egg Gate, but they don't find Sonic because he's already left. And so I thought I like the idea of making there be a little more weight between the reunion of Sonic and the Resistance. Adds a little more tension to the game, I think. But at the same time, we also need a reason for Sonic to be out doing his own thing as well. So I reworked it to be like that. And then Green Hill, Classic Sonic's Green Hill level, I renamed to Mech Hill, and the level design would definitely reflect that. And then you see versus Heavy Rider. I wanted to do another interesting thing. Instead of Sonic fighting Eggman and the Wrecking... Well, it's not a Wrecking Ball because it has a chainsaw now. And then the Egg Dragoon. Instead, I thought it would be cool if Infinite, upon seeing Classic Sonic, is like, "Oh, here you go," and he uses the Phantom Ruby to create the hard-boiled heavies and bring them to the modern Sonic world, but the way he does it, it makes it look like he's summoning them, leaving Classic Tails befuddled that they're listening to him because he's like, "The Eggman of our world tried to control them, but they wouldn't listen. How can he do it?" And then you fight the Heavy Rider, and then I wanted the Avatar to have a level to kind of break things up. Park Avenue, I didn't know where else I would put it if I didn't put it there when I was rearranging it. And then Luminous Forest takes on a new feel. Sonic is there by himself, but he's after Shadow, trying to get some answers. But of course, we all know it's the Phantom Shadow. And so Luminous Forest is now kind of banter between them instead of Sonic running to get to Silver's aid, which I'll talk a bit more about in a sec. At the end of the level, though, when Sonic's about to force Shadow to get some answers, but it's obvious that Shadow's kind of down, he uses Chaos Control to escape last second, as well as mentioning maybe giving aid to Chaos. And so, Seaside Hill, Sonic goes against Perfect Chaos, where the Resistance are already trying to go against Perfect Chaos. And Sonic meets up, and they're like, "Wait, Sonic?" And so that would be the reunion. Then the next Seaside Hill level would be Palace Ruins. And I thought this would be a cool little reference that the first tag team level would be in a Sonic Hero stage. Now, some of you might be wondering, why Seaside Hill? Why couldn't you actually do something unique unlike what the rest of the game did? And the answer I have for that is the way I was initially thinking of this is, first of all, Seaside Hill is already mentioned in the game, so it's already technically part of the story. It's just simply not a stage. And second of all, the way I originally constructed this was thinking kind of a what if it was delayed a year. And I initially decided not to do that, but the way I have this set up, I didn't want to redo that at all. Also, some of you might be wondering, why is the city now SC? And it's because I want to follow what the IDW comics did and rename it to Sunset City. It deserves an actual name, and that will also come up with the next level, Tech Street, and what I'm now calling New Metropolis rather than Metropolis to help differentiate it from the other metropolises. And Classic Sonic would now get a level here, and this is where his levels will start to include the hard-boiled heavies kind of doing different things. And obviously this would be a completely new level for Metropolis, or now New Metropolis. And this brings up another point I wanted to get at, that I think each area in the game should have one modern Sonic level, one classic, one avatar, and one tag team. So that way each area feels a little more full. Because there were definitely areas in the base game that were not treated as such, and because of that, the game feels a little less empty. Like there's so many potential classic Sonic stages there could have been, but they didn't. Actually, I guess now I think about it, New Metropolis was the only. Metropolis is the only place where he originally didn't have one, but I don't know. Same with the tag team stuff. You might be wondering why keeping Classic Sonic. In case you don't remember what I said earlier, I don't want to change it too drastically. I want to still have some kind of semblance, but at the same time, obviously, I will be changing some things. Like I've already said, Sonic takes a while to meet up with the Resistance. Perfect Chaos, and I wanted to do that specifically because it brings up this point that only the player would know. Tails in Classic Sonic have already defeated Chaos, so we know Chaos is out of the game. But then we see Perfect Chaos, and the Resistance doesn't know he's been beaten already. But you, the player, do. And so that would be the original inception of, wait, what's actually going on? And so then, after Tech Street, you go back to Green Hill for Arsenal Pyramid. The only thing I want to mention with that, I think it would be cool if before the double boost section, that it was blocked off by a gate and you enter a side-scrolling section where they're like, oh no, there's a gate. Guess we need to find the switches to unlock it and get in. I don't know why I want to specifically mention that, but there we go. I would also take lots of cues from different people modding Sonic Forces right now. Which, by the way, if anyone sees this as a big task that they would love to actually mod into Sonic Forces, hit me up. I would love to learn how to do that as well. But after that would be Neon Treetops in Mystic Jungle. And the point of that would be to kind of fill the original gap that moving Luminous Forest would have. In the original Luminous Forest, Sonic was racing through Mystic Jungle to get the silver to aid him fighting Infinite. But since we moved that earlier in the point, I thought it would be cool to have him go in with the Avatar and be like, oh, let's show him what we can do, kind of thing. And so, completely new level, Neon Treetops. And then you might be wondering, who's this Phantom Guardian? Why are you fighting him instead of Infinite? Well, I personally didn't like the fact that I feel like the ultimate battle against Infinite was kind of weakened by the fact that you've already fought him twice in the game, and both times, like, one was by Sonic by himself, one was by the Avatar by himself. So that penultimate battle where Sonic goes to fight Infinite, but then needs the Avatar to tag in with him to finish the job, it kind of felt hollow. And so I wanted to replace that, especially because Infinite's supposed to pose this force of, he's the first one who is actually able to defeat Sonic and bring him to his knees. I don't want that to be ruined too far out of the gate. And so instead, like, imagine same cutscene, but Avatar still there as well. And when Sonic goes to fight Infinite, Infinite just uses a silver-like power on him, and maybe Silver and the Avatar as well. But it brings Sonic specifically closer to him, and he's like, I should have finished you back then when the doctor told me to stop. But right before he goes to finish in Sonic, you hear the Phantom Ruby sound effect, and you just see this kind of golem-esque thing wander onto the scene, and Infinite just drops Sonic and friends and flies off scared. And they'd be like, wonder what that's all about. And so then you would fight the Phantom Guardian as Avatar and Sonic, and I thought that was interesting because there's really only one boss fight in the game where it's like that, two if you count the final boss. And so I kind of wanted to do this, and it'd be a bit more of an arena-esque battle. Especially since the only arena-esque battle we have is against Zavok, and I've already replaced that. So I thought it would be cool to include this here, as well as some new bit of data that comes from a bit of headcanon on my part that I would love to implement into Sonic Forces. I think it would be cool, little bit of trivia, that the Phantom Ruby was created by someone ages ago to rival the Master Emerald, which, in case you couldn't tell, this would include all the DLC just kind of bundled in here as well. And so, since we have that, like, obviously Supersonic and them would be part of it, and I want to talk more about that later. So, I want to include more of these emeralds. But here would be the first bit of data of, oh, Eggman took the Phantom Ruby, tried to replicate it because he couldn't understand its power. And this golem is the original guardian of the Phantom Ruby. And it works based on same powers. And it was based on someone who was maybe originally had good intentions, but eventually corrupt, trying to recreate the Master Emerald. And maybe a bit more of headcanon. I don't know if they'd be able to do this because of a certain Ken Penders, but maybe it was the original like source of like, okay, we won't necessarily try back in the adventure days with Tikal and Pachacamac, however you pronounce his name. Like before they go raid the Emerald Altar, try and force their way to steal the Master and Chaos Emeralds. Maybe at first they could have been like, let's create our own then, and then that goes horribly wrong, and then they're like, we have no other options. So, bit of head canon on that part. Chemical Plant, for classic Sonic, I would rename the Data Plant. I really hated how his Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Death Egg level was just Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Death Egg. So I renamed those, and Data Plant is the one I went with this time. Then we have Sunset Heights, which I really love. One mod I've seen where they extend the level by having like once Sonic gets to the original stopping point, instead he comes across Shadow, continues on the level, and Shadow just continuously shows up throughout the level, and you get to attack him. But this is when you would find out, it has that cutscene that where Sonic goes to fight Shadow, but then Shadow comes and saves Sonic from Shadow, and Sonic's like, wait, what's going on? But here's the plot twist. This is all going on while the Rookie and Knuckles and them are charging into New Metropolis. Sonic's a bit of a decoy who's going after Shadow, kind of like what we'd see later on in the original game where the Rookie goes to Green Hill and they're like, make noise so Sonic won't have as much trouble in Chemical Plant. He can just sneak on in. It's kind of like the same thing. They're like, New Metropolis is empty. Let's send Sonic in as a decoy at Sunset City where they're all at, while the Rookie and everyone else charges in here. And so that's where Capital City would come in. I removed that boss fight and simply replaced it with a cutscene so that there is no what would be the correct phrasing of this? My brain's just gone flat. Just kind of making sure there's no boss battle, and I know some of you are looking ahead and they're like, he got the Phantom Ruby prototype that saved him from Infinite in the next stage. Which my answer is he easily could have gotten it after they defeated the Phantom Guardian. Like I feel like that part is interchangeable. And so then Casino Forest and Aqua Road, we know the gist there. Then Red Gate Bridge. I want to separate that from the boss battle against Metal Sonic, especially because that could be a lot more interesting, being focused on taking down more Death Egg Sentinels, which I feel like would be an epic feeling. Of course, I'd also want to rework the Metal Sonic boss fight because it feels too similar to the Infinite boss fight that's come later on. And here comes the next interesting bit. So the next two Seaside Hill levels was originally where Classic Sonic's Chemical Plant level was. So I thought it would be cool to just kind of replace it with these two, Seaside Hill 4, Turtle Isle, and Seaside Hill 5, Aquatic Factory. I feel like you can easily get across the gist of what those would be about. And then, of course, you have Guardian Rock and Network Terminal. And remember what part of the story that was at, but I feel like the Avatar could easily hop on board with the shuttle as it's taking off, and Sonic's like, see, you can do great on your own. And then here's the next thing I want to do, which I felt like would be cool. Avatar, Sonic, Tag Team, Death Egg level, Space Fleet. I feel like that would be very epic. And then Classic Sonic is sent into the Egg Core, and after he destroys the Egg Core, goes against the Heavy King. Up to this point, Classic Sonic's levels have the hard-boiled heavies poking their noses where they don't belong. Well, I guess they do belong because Eggman owns the world, so they go wherever they want. But, anyways, here would be the Classic Sonic's ultimate boss, the Heavy King. And then, of course, we get the Metropolitan Highway and Null Space, and it works kind of the same way as it did before. The only thing I wanted to point out, Null Space, I want to have more time in the actual Null Space. And on top of that, I think it would be cool if the level started where it's just your avatar and you have to look for Sonic. And then you try and find a way out, and then double boost, and you get out. I felt that would be cool. But then the thing is, from here, I want Eggman and Infinite in them to just disappear, and they don't know where Eggman's Empire Fortress is. And so they go back to Chemical Plant to see if they can find any information. And that's where you have War Grounds, and then Phantom Shadow. There's no boss fight against Shadow. This was me wanting to plug that in there, and I know the previous level had the Avatar there. Why is he not helping Sonic? I feel like Sonic's ego would get the best of him and be like, I want to do this just me. And he'd go against Phantom Shadow. Then we get Eggman's Empire Fortress, and honestly, I don't think it needs to have that long of a name. It could just be Empire Fortress, but I wouldn't be against it still being Eggman's Empire Fortress. The things here I want to point out is the fact that I don't know, originally in the game, when I got to Eggman's Empire Fortress, it felt like every single level ultimately proved and summed up my feelings about the game. With its mediocrity and how much I didn't like it. Imperial Tower is where I truly came to understand just how trash the physics of the game is. And so, of course, I'd want that fixed up as well. Mortar Canyon feels like the epitome of boost to win, so I'd want to fix that up as well. The Infinite boss fight's fine. I just don't want Infinite ending up the same way he originally did, where his last words are, I'm not weak. I can finish this. I'm not weak. That makes him seem like a crybaby. I've changed that ending. Iron Fortress, with its auto scroller, first of all, it won't be an auto scroller anymore. Then Final Judgment. And I want to change the name of the final boss. It's now the Egg Phantom. Now, moving on, other cool things I'd want to do. Hub World Resistance HQ. Very unique and original idea on my part, I know. But I imagine that you could talk to different characters here, and they could give you different missions to go back to the levels and redo. Like, oh, you should go back to Guardian Rock and defeat 25 enemies. Or, oh, you should go back to Sunset Heights and find 3 Chow, or something like that. And I feel like that would add extra depth to the game, and you'd get different rewards and such like that, which would also remind me, I want to rework how you unlock cosmetics for your avatar. I want there to be a shop here, and you all the rings you get in a level is added into your ring total that you can use at this shop. And there, you just simply buy whatever avatar unlockables you want. I always prefer it that way because I only want to look through a large catalog of things to customize my characters with to find the permanent thing I want to keep. I don't want to have to look through the giant catalog every time I want to make a tiny adjustment to my character. And of course, this would also be where I'd want to put Wispins, Wispin upgrades. And of course, thanks to Sonic Colors Ultimate, as well as some of the new things they're trying with Sonic Frontiers, I'd want to put in unlockable cosmetics for modern and classic Sonic as well. I feel like that'd be a cool, unique touch. And of course, and the other interesting thing I want to add about this base, I want it to be on Angel Island. The reason being, again, that extra inclusion of the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds in the story this time around. And on top of that, it never made sense to me why, when the entire world was in peril, that Knuckles would leave here, especially because it would make sense that Angel Island would be the best place to put a base like this. I mean, it might be hard to get recruits up there who are looking to join, they could easily move the. I guess they could easily move the Master Emerald to another part of the island and it sinks into the ocean, and then other people can get on that way, or maybe they have recruitment shuttles. The comics seem to imply that they have shuttles, but I don't know. I feel like that would make the most sense, and you could probably interact with the Master Emerald in the hub world. Sorry. But then the next thing I want to address, like I said earlier, I want to talk about the Supersonics. Because originally they were just free DLC. The second you download them, you can just use them in whatever level. I want it to be more story focused this time. So I'd also add special stages. And I don't know how popular of an opinion this is. I really liked how they did it in Sonic Heroes. So maybe trying to get something like that, and I'd make it to where Son either of the Sonics could enter the special stage, maybe the Avatar as well. And you would need to do that to unlock the final boss, where you would fight him as both Super Sonics as well as a Super Avatar of your own. And I think easy adjustment, they will just take whatever avatar you created, and they could it would just give a super pale color tone of whatever the original color you chose for your character is, and of course make them glow and fly and things like that. So definitely reworking that final part of the final boss. I feel like the first two phases will maybe reworking classic Sonic's phase of that boss fight. So you all might be wondering, after everything I've talked about, what would I do with Shadow? Well, anyways, thank you guys for watching. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I don't know what I want to do with Shadow or what I would do with Shadow. Mainly because my head hurts every time I think of episode Shadow. I'd rather just ignore it and leave that as an issue for another day. So, what did all of you think? Please let me know, comments below. I think Sonic Forces had a lot of potential, and if they would have just steered the ship a little better, given it a little more time, like I said earlier, use Sonic Mania as an excuse to delay the game by a year. I feel like it would have done way better than it actually did, especially because it would have gained some distance from Mania. And on top of that, we would have had to go potentially less time between mainline Sonic games. Who knows? That probably would have delayed Frontiers. But yeah, and if you guys are excited for Frontiers, subscribe. I definitely am getting the game day one and will be playing it day one on the channel. I don't know if I'll live stream it, probably not. I'll just upload new videos of me doing it in my experience. I don't know much. I've tried to avoid. I can't remember the names of the little stone creatures, and I don't. On top of that, I don't even know if they do anything. I've just been that into trying to stay free of spoilers. So it's going to be a fun time going into it practically blind, just like most people are, I guess. But anyways, that's all for today. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao.